Like, I've had a lot of tunes rejected because of that. They don't want another track to come out with the same thing.
Of course
and it's
not.
like
People fun in their lives, right?
Of course. You know, you go from filthy dubstep to doing bass house and tech house. It is quite a jump. But that's how I've always been as an artist. I just want to contribute to bringing stuff to San Francisco that might not get brought out here.
The career is always based on how you visualize yourself. Because if you can see yourself, and I'm talking to you, if you can see yourself 6 months out into the future, what does that look like for you right now? Can you visualize that person so that you feel like that person every day when you're walking around?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to do something that isn't me. Okay, what's my next move?
That willingness to play and collaborate.
With Greg Gordon. Hey, we're listening to Do My Thing here, and we got Johnny5 on the show today. Welcome, Johnny5.
Thank you for having me, Greg.
Yeah.
Honored to be here.
Hey, it's a pleasure. Pleasure to have you here, man. So, yeah, this is unreleased, right?
This is unreleased. It's going to be coming out soon on No Face Records next month, actually. So
very cool. Let's check this out for a second here.
Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah, we got some bass house in effect here,
That's
right?
right.
Uh-huh. Yeah. How long you been producing this style now?
About 2.5 years.
Uh-huh.
2.5 years for the bass house and the tech house.
Now, when you first came to the Bay from Chicago, you came here as a hip-hop producer, right?
I was a hip-hop producer, rapper, and somewhat promoter, but yeah, I used the moniker Influence.
Nice. And what year was that? When did you come out here?
2005.
Okay.
Came out here.
2005, you came out from Chicago. And what was it like in San Francisco when you first hit the ground here?
Man, I absolutely loved San Francisco. I fell in love with the city as soon as I got here. And it was a different San Francisco than it is now. I'd say there was still some artistry left back in the city in those days. Before I think the tech guys kind of maybe came in and made the cost of living here a little bit high. So, you know, some of the artists, you know, it was hard for folks to stick around, but the music scene, especially the hip hop scene in 2005 in the Bay was pretty strong.
Yeah, well, that was, you know, coming out of the golden age of hip hop, really.
Yes.
You know, you kind of hit the ground running with that. So what were you doing back then as a hip hop producer to jump into the scene here? What motivated you to leave Chicago, which in and of itself has its own happening scene, right? Why San Francisco? Why'd you pick this town?
Chicago, you know, had an amazing underground hip hop scene in the late 90s, early 2000s. You know, a lot of great music was coming out of there. And I always knew that I always wanted to be out in the Bay Area since I was younger. I was a skater, and California is like a mecca for skating.
Oh, yeah,
and
for sure.
That was my first affinity, was I wanted to get out here and just be a part of this vibe. And then I was a huge fan of Bay Area rap music and Bay Area music in general when I lived in Chicago. Like, you know, Hieroglyphics and Souls of Mischief.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. You know, even like Mac Dre and hyphy music and stuff like that. So I just knew that the Bay was the place to be if you wanted to come out here.
Yeah. Well, and you came out here, you were in your, you know, what, early 20s?
Early 20s,
even
yeah.
that. And you came out here also to get an education, is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, I wanted to be an audio engineer, and I really wanted to work in studios, and ended up coming out here to go to a school. I don't know if I can say
no, of course you can.
Expression College. Shout out anyone. You know, there's quite a bit of the Expression family still out there. And that being able to get a degree in audio engineering, which was a bachelor's degree, was my ticket out here. I couldn't just come out from Chicago with nothing. I kind of had to, you know, have a pathway. And
is this something your family wanted?
Yeah. I mean, you know, I already tried to do the college thing and realized that, like, I just wanted to do music stuff and just be in the studio. That was my whole thing, was be in the studio. And the college that I went to had a lot of studio time that they offered us. So that was like why I wanted to go to Expression. Yeah. So every student had, you know, like 20 hours, and they had all the best microphones and all the best, you know, all the best gear. I learned, the signal flow, so to speak, how a compressor works, how reverb, how delay works, all these different things, got to deep dive on things which I use currently in my production now.
Right. I mean, your production sound pretty tight, right? And you're an Ableton producer, as I understand.
I'm an Ableton guy.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I used Logic in the past, and when I was a hip hop guy, I was more into Reason and Fruity Loops.
Sure.
FL Studio.
A lot of FL Studio in the hip hop world. Yeah.
Yeah. I still use those DAWs depending on what I'm doing. So or who if I'm collaborating with another artist or something that uses that, but I prefer Ableton. I've been using it since like Ableton 9 or 8 or something, and that was initially how I would do my live performances, was through Ableton and controllers and kind of building sets live. So when I started like the Johnny5 thing, like that, my production knowledge from learning Ableton kind of, I translated that into a live application as well.
So you were then using Ableton as a live performance?
I had for a couple years I used Ableton APC 40, and I would have like stems of each track I was gonna play or stuff, and because I was like a beat guy, and I was also a traditional DJ. Like I spun vinyl and then eventually, CDs and then the thumb drives and stuff. But like I was also really into the kind of like the hip hop thing where you could do the live beats. My very first piece of production equipment I ever got was an MPC 2000. And that was in like, I think like 1999 or something. So, I mean, I've been producing since like Windows 98 kind of thing. When my family got a computer, I took the old computer and I had, I don't know if you remember like Acid Pro, a DAW, or Acid Pro or Cool Edit, or these kind of old DAWs, even like Cubase, I guess. But like,
well, Acid you could time compress without changing pitch, and it had a huge sample library, and it was a real cool predecessor to what Ableton eventually dominated. Yeah.
So like that's kind of like, I did that when I was like 15, 16 years old, and just never stopped making music.
So I think something that people think a lot about when they look at getting an education in this industry is they think about, well, where am I going to end up if I do this? Right?
Yeah.
Did you think about that a lot when you went to get this kind of education? What was the outcome that you had in your mind versus what was the outcome that actually transpired?
That's a great question. I was exposed to so much different things at the school. Like initially going in there, I was just like, I want to be in the studio with, I want to be recording bands. I want to be recording people.
So were you visualizing yourself then as
an engineer?
As an engineer doing the technical piece, not the creative side so much. You wanted to pair up with other creatives that you would help realize their vision.
Correct.
And that was your vision.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and I wanted to be a part of records, not just like my own records, but like other people's records that which is why I did a lot of production for other people, mostly in the hip hop realm. But
and were you able to take advantage of your studio time
at
school to do that? And pair up? How did you find your first artist to work with?
The first artist I worked with was another student in my class. And at that time, we're talking like 2005 to 2008, like beat making and hip hop was still, I think, a thing before this new wave of hip hop or rap music is kind of, it's just a different sound than it was then.
What do you attribute that to, that different sound? Do you think it's because people can just go out and buy beats now?
I think so. Yeah. I think that's a big thing. And you can just go out and buy a beat and you don't have to really, put in any time or effort to make it or do anything. with how social media and everything and YouTube and everything has kind of changed the game for that. So, I think that,
Do you see a downside to that? I mean, the whole buying of a beat, what does that do in terms of somebody's credibility? Does that affect their
are you talking
credibility in
about
your
more
mind?
like a ghost producer?
No,
or
not,
like more,
no,
or
not.
more,
Well,
or like,
I mean, it is
like a
kind of
hip-hop-
like a ghost producer, but
Right.
really, like if you go to a site like BeatStars and you're going to
Right.
go and you're going to just fully buy a beat.
Well, I used
and
to
then
sell
you're gonna
my-
use that to make your track.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of beat makers now make a lot of money,
Right.
can make a good living or decent living doing that. Do you support that, or do you feel like is there a downside to that, or is that
I
nothing but
support
positive?
I support that because I sell my beats as well. I license out beats all the time. And I think that it's a good way to connect people together is if it makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you be truly creative as an artist when you're buying other people's beats? Can you really? Can you stand out? Can you create really like your own signature brand buying other people's beats?
I don't think so. No.
That's
no,
what I'm
definitely
getting at
not.
right there.
No.
Right, because we have like what we talked about this earlier, 50,000 odd music tracks a day,
Right.
getting released.
The musical output nowadays is huge.
It's amazing. And a lot of that is because people can short circuit the process by buying a beat and then putting their flow over the top of it or whatever it is
Exactly.
they want to do. But does that ultimately create a sustainable brand as an artist, or does it matter anymore? In your opinion?
I personally don't think it creates a sustain. Like my personal opinion is that I wouldn't go that route. I would, I would take time to develop your signature sound, and just create a lot as much as you can. More quantity over like a quality thing, and just see what gets out there. But from the other standpoint, it's like people doing that, they can blow up pretty quickly, just getting a popular beat from somebody and short, like you said, short circuiting it. And then nowadays you can just self-release everything to Spotify yourself, or you don't really necessarily need to like release stuff through like a label or do that. So like you get a beat from YouTube, you can make a song, put it out.
Right, but then you're swimming in a sea of other releases.
Right.
And so that's where the label comes in. It's like having that connection to other artists who are being recognized as being talented and unique.
And fitting that label's style and sound as well,
Right. Right.
So-
And so when you came out here, you were doing hip hop, and eventually you made a conscious decision to jump into dubstep. And that was
Yeah.
part of a big wave
Yeah.
back then. So talk about that. What was that
Sure,
like,
sure.
transitioning both as an artist and a producer? Did you see yourself then kind of like you talked
I was
about
lost.
Yeah, but I was just
Yeah.
gonna say you like your visual ultimate goal coming out of school was like, I'm going to be an engineer, right? I'm going to work with other artists. So how did all this happen?
That kind of happened. I interned around the Bay Area, had a few studios, got really into the live sound, but
was it easier to get jobs in live sound than it was in the studio?
Yeah,
right?
yeah, a lot easier in live sound.
Yeah.
And San Francisco only had a few big companies out at that time. I think it was like JK Sound and some other people. Like, so having the Expression graduate, thing,
that helped, right?
Yeah, that helped.
That was like a calling card.
Yeah.
You could go in and be like, yo, yeah, I've got skills, right?
It's a lot of
I went to school, and then you can connect through the alumni network.
So, I thought, I'm going to be doing this engineering stuff, this other stuff. At the same time, I was also kind of very involved in the cannabis industry as well.
Yep.
So I was kind of taking the music and the cannabis industry. I was working for a website that was like Weed Maps, kind of, which is like a site where you can go and look at dispensaries and stuff.
Sure.
It was called Weed Tracker, and I started my first kind of thing with them, my first label, where we, we did a tour. We did a tour throughout the whole West Coast. We hit like 15 states.
So they sponsored the
They
tour?
sponsored the tour.
Now, what a great way to do it,
Yeah.
right? That's smart, right?
And this
Because
was-
you're not trying to do it all on your own back with your own money. You're bringing in a sponsor, and you're gaining a lot of visibility for yourself in your true passion here.
So like, yeah, exactly. And once, you know, we booked some shows. Like I said, we played a show at Slim's. The first show was this venue called Slim's in San Francisco. It's,
I remember Slim's.
Yeah, it's a legendary venue.
Legendary.
And that was with Living Legends and Souls of Mischief. So that was like our first start of the tour. It was a sold out show, and then we played, you know, LA, San Diego, New Mexico, Utah, like just did the whole circuit. Every show obviously wasn't as good as that, but I was kind of reaching a point where I was mostly producing for the guys on the label. I was making all their beats, and then, you know, we were releasing.
Now, this label was run by Weed Tracker?
It was run by myself and Weed Tracker. Like, I was the executive producer,
and they were the brand that was helping to finance.
They financed everything, and you know, they had the whole cannabis. You know, they had a lot of connections with stuff down in LA and all these other guys like Zion I, you know, and Charlie Tuna from Jurassic 5, and like, you know, we did shows with them. Like we you know, I was lucky enough to be in the same kind of room with those folks and to get to know those people, and that was an experience I consider like kind of like the height of my hip hop kind of career, was doing the tour with them. But I think we kind of talked about earlier, like things started changing in the music scene out here in San Francisco, and like there was some other smaller venues. I don't know if you remember like this place called the Element Lounge. It was on Geary. There was these kind of spots that were more known for throwing these hip hop kind of things, and they were closing down and this and that, and then battle rapping and that kind of stuff that I was doing was just not cool. I feel like anymore. Like it started just declining in popularity, and that kind of leads me into my segue into dubstep or electronic music, because I was kind of lost, like just feeling like I'd kind of done these tours, I've done this stuff, but I don't think my music was as good as like it could have been, you know what I mean? Like I wasn't super confident in it. And that's also kind of why I wanted to do the engineering stuff, because I was very much more confident in my ability to mix a record or record a record or do that stuff, rather than
you trained yourself for that.
Yeah,
so
those
skills were there, right?
Yeah, and I, you know, I was at a kind of a creative, and also moving out to California, it exposed me to so many different styles of music, like, you know, like reggae and all these other things I was like really kind of like not super into in Chicago, but and one of that was dubstep, and how I got into dubstep was through one of my hip hop buddies, shout out Ronu, who's one of the artists. Ronu, yeah, you know, he's a guy from Chicago that also moved out here, so we are Chicago brothers, and Ronu is also, he's an amazing MC, amazing producer, and his roommate was a dubstep DJ. So and he goes, you gotta come over to my house, like you should hear what my roommate's doing, like you should hear this music. He's like, he listens to bass music, and I'm like, what's bass music? I have no idea what it was. So I went over to his house, eventually ended up there. And
what year was this?
This was 2008.
Okay.
Yeah, this is 08. And 2008, I was like, wow, this is cool, because bass, like, you know, stuff like Bass Nectar and these other guys that were kind of getting popular for doing these mashup things, because I feel like the dubstep thing kind of like was also coming in off of mashups, like that these guys were doing, and I was like, whoa, this is like something that really like resonates with me, and I just kind of fell in love with it right then and there, and I was like, I was talking to Ronu, I said, you know, this is cool, like where do you find more of this and whatnot? And we were living in East Oakland at the time, and that's how I kind of discovered Malabel, which was going to underground events at this place called the Bordello. If you're an OG raver or party goer in San Francisco Bay Area and Oakland or whatever, you'll probably know what the Bordello is. For those who don't know what the Bordello is, it's basically a house, but it has all these different rooms kind of built into it, which would never fly these days because like the whole ghost ship thing, you know, it's like it was way more, I think, on the level of that with the dangerousness, but it had hot tubs in the basement. It used to be Jack London, you know, famous guy from Oakland. He used to, you know, that used to be his place. So this Bordello thing became an obsession for me. And the first event I went to, I was blown away. I literally have never looked back since then. And that was a Malleable music party. It was a holiday party that they brought out Borgor, who was like my favorite dubstep artist at the time. And like and now you're talking like 200 people packed in a house in East Oakland. And ever since then, you know, I've never looked back. So
So you then made the switch. You were like, okay, hip hop, done with that.
I was going back and forth for a while. I was still doing shows under influence, and I was doing stuff at like Milk Bar on Haight Street, and like, you know, just salvaging whatever I could do, because through Weed Tracker we also had a partnership with Ineffable Recordings, which is like a label and management company in Berkeley, and they managed Devin the Dude and Collie Buds and like some of these other guys, and played shows with them. And like I was still carrying on like the partnership with them, but I just fell in love with the whole like culture of bass music. It was different from hip hop. It was just more of a community that I was identifying with at the time.
Nice. What were your first explorations into making that kind of music? How was that like?
Shout out to Corey, aka Megalodon, who was the first person to show me how to make dubstep music on Reason. And he's a huge inspiration for my dubstep production. Would be Megalodon, would be him. So shout out Corey. He showed me kind of the basics in Reason, and from there I just kind of started picking it up. And then most of my dubstep production besides the last record was in Reason, but then I switched over to Ableton. But that's kind of like how I got into
What was
it.
your go-to in Reason? Like when he started showing you how to produce this, what would you guys?
Learning how to make LFO, like wobble,
Wobbles.
like wobble, you know,
Yeah.
like the Maelstrom was, I think, like a synth we were using a lot. And like just what is it, the Rex file, the Rex player, whatever, the Rex thing, that
Making Rex files,
Yes,
basically.
yeah. And so it
basically creating elastic audio, being able to do grains and then time stretch them, and
which was not really available. Like warping, I don't think was really like a thing then. I don't know if like the warping engine, I actually, I remember they made a lot of improvements to like in Ableton when it hit to like 10 with like the warping stuff. But yeah, that was kind of like my first foray, because I told Corey, like, I already produce, like, I know how to make stuff in Fruit Loops. I know how to make beats. Like, here's my music, but I have no idea how to make these sounds you guys are making. Like, you know, and that was like an obsession in and of itself. Cause then I learned, you know, okay, we're going to get out of Reason. And we're going to go to Massive now, which was like my first VST that I really dove into to learn. I still use it every once in a while on my like new music, but those were like Massive and Ableton were like kind of that's pretty much was my go-to.
Yeah. So then from there, it seems to me like you kind of leveraged yourself up into the next phase of your career by getting into promotion. Is that right?
Exactly.
Becoming a promoter.
Exactly.
So how did that transition happen?
And it was never really...
How important was that in terms of these next phases for you?
Yeah, that was never really planned per per se, like becoming a promoter. I mean, I'd always been love to do live events and stuff like that. Obviously, like the behind the scenes stuff, the live sound, but that whole thing came about after going to Malleable parties and some other crews, Malleable, Red Line, and Ruckus, Compression, like these kind of SF crews. Like after going to all these different parties and seeing, just I'll never forget just like seeing the reaction that these people were getting from the crowd is like something I wouldn't experience in doing like the hip hop stuff. So after I knew that I solidly was transitioning out of hip hop into dubstep, into EDM, I was like, how am I gonna get on to the scene? Like, how am I gonna play music? And it was
not just play any music. How am I going to get into this scene?
This scene,
right?
specifically, yes, which was a very like Burning Man. Like I had to learn about the dubstep scene, like because in San Francisco it's like very Burning Man.
Yeah, well, the whole bass music scene came up with the Burning Man crew, and I remember Lauren, aka Bass Nectar, saying, "I'm going to become the Burning Man rock star because I've got this." I remember him literally
pretty much
saying,
did.
Yeah, I remember him saying it and watching him do it, which was, and again, that comes back to having that vision for yourself, which is why I always like to hear how does the vision start? Because the career is always based on how you visualize yourself. Because if you can see yourself, and I'm talking to you, if you can see yourself 6 months out into the future, what does that look like for you right now? Can you visualize that person so that you feel like that person every day when you're walking around?
That's really important. That's great.
And I watched him do it, and you had your own way of doing that too.
Yeah.
And I think that started with this transition into the dubstep scene, right?
And yeah, I mean, I was just infatuated with it, and it started out very, very humble, and I've always tried to keep my the way I do things that way, and keep things, very organic and humble, and
that's real. People respect that too. Nobody wants somebody coming out like, I'm the shit.
Right. I mean, I have a true passion for bass music. It'll always be a huge part of my life. And at that time I didn't care about some of the monetary things as long as I could, pay my rent, my bills. And I was cool. And I just really just loved the what was happening at that time. And when I moved into doing the promotion stuff, that was, like I said a little earlier, that was somewhat by accident. I was DJing at my college at the time. They were doing open houses, so they would want artists and producers, people that were going to the school, that were doing stuff that they could kind of be there to be like the face of the school. Like people would walk in and they'd see the DJing and all that stuff.
Sense,
so
of course.
That is what happened. I was spinning, and of course I was playing dubstep. I told them I'm playing this dubstep thing, and they were like, okay, whatever. And that's when I met my partner, who I ended up basically throwing events with for over 10 years, who was Daniel Nebuchadnezzar, aka Nebuchadnezzar, now known as Danny DeLorean. But we met, and then from then he had more of the experience as a promoter. He's already been DJing for a lot longer than I have, and kind of did the house thing, and so he already knew how the promotion game worked. So I learned a lot working with Daniel, and that's what transitioned me into my next part, which was starting an event called Ritual. That was a weekly dubstep event that we held at various venues throughout San Francisco for 6 years, plus LA as well. And also doing like one-offs and festivals and stuff like that. So for that 6-year period from like 2010 to 2016, I was mostly focused on like, you know, the event thing, and at the same time starting a record label in 2011 called Irie Cartel Recordings.
Which still exists now, right?
It does. Yeah. We still, we still put out stuff, but it's more of a passion project. It's more of a niche thing. It's kind of retired because, I'm starting a new venture with that. But after starting the label, the whole reason I really wanted to do the label is because I was meeting so many amazing DJs through booking them at Ritual, and
that's an important point, just right there, right? Because you get into promotion, you get yourself out into the scene, high visibility, people respect you because you're helping clubs make money, and at the end of the day, we know that's what it's all about.
And you're providing people like a community. Like the thing about Ritual that I think was so special, that anyone who's watching this or listening to this, if they were around in that time in San Francisco, like you can't deny like the impact that it had on people's lives. People would meet their significant others. I've heard so many different stories about how Ritual, it was some people's first gigs ever, like Yeti, who Yeti is a bass music producer who's absolutely blown up a lot, and that was his first show was Ritual. So we've had tons of people's.
Did K Theory ever play?
Yeah.
Ritual? Yeah.
Yeah.
Dustin,
yes,
who was a graduate of ours.
Yeah,
and I know
amazing producer,
and he came up hard through.
Oh yeah,
I remember them talking about Ritual SF back in, it must have been like 2015, 16, something like around there.
Yeah,
right? And you were doing it at Temple.
Yes,
right, in the basement at Temple. Is that right?
The catacombs,
the
catacombs at Temple,
yeah.
which was a very special place. I think, like I said, it's just. We had like the right time, the right place with this Ritual thing, and we put in a ton of work to make it what it was. I mean, it started out at this bar called Anu on 6th and Market, and it got about 70, 50, 75 capacity at the most, and they gave us our shot. They were like, we'll let you guys do this party here.
What night of the week did they give you to start?
Thursday.
Thursday. That's a good night. Yeah. That's a good night to get things going, right?
So Thursday was our night. That was like our Ritual Thursday. So everyone knew like Thursday is Ritual. We only.
How important was the name? Do you think that had a big impact on?
So I think the name was a big thing too.
Yeah.
There's still like some debates on like who came up with the name and this and that, but I think the whole Ritual thing, because we wanted to have it be kind of like a Burning Man type of vibe. Like we wanted it just to be like the Ritual. And then you had another party on the same night called Beat Church, which was over at F8. I don't know if that was maybe one thing we were talking about earlier, but so we had 2 bass music nights on the same night. We also had another party called Bass Cellar at this place called The Cellar, which on a Tuesday night. So like dubstep and SF was like
going on.
So we started at the Anu bar, and we'd invite DJs from all over the Bay Area and Santa Cruz. I think one of our best nights is when we had all the Santa Cruz guys and girls come on up here and play. That night was like, I think one of our best nights at the Anu thing, and it just became a liability after a while because we were trying to pack like 100 people into this little spot, and it was overflowing onto the street, and it's an interesting area in San Francisco.
Course,
so there's
not the safest
so there's
spot.
not the safest, and we did kind of think outside the box things. That was kind of a thing with Ritual. Was music was like the main thing, was booking the best DJs, no matter like how popular you were or this or that. Like we ran our night like, if you're good, like you can play here, you can get on the decks, you can be a part of this thing. If we didn't just book like the most popular person or this or that. So I think that's when I say like we kind of gave people a chance, you know. So a lot of people respected that, and then after things grew, we did like this. What I was saying, we were doing like this barbecue thing on 6th Street where we would serve food to people that came out to our thing, and it was, we call them like base burgers, where like you get a it'd be like Johnny or Nebuchadnezzar or Kit behind the grill, like we're serving you like the thing. It's like we're just this goofy stuff, but people enjoyed it, and it was outside the box, and eventually we attracted the attention of other venues, and that's kind of when we moved into working with Temple, San Francisco, which is an amazing establishment. I still work with Temple now, and I think that they gave us our shot to get on a bigger level, and we ended up at our height. I think we had about 1,000 people a week. We were getting 1,000 people, like just everyone was just packed up to the front. Like it was. We actually had to open up the other room, like the Destiny Lounge, I think is what it was called, and like so we started attracting the attention of agencies, and then that's when I think we realized like we have something here. And it really just turned into like a family vibe. Like if you came to Ritual, we would always try to be outgoing, and we were like, our whole philosophy was to welcome everybody. It was to be all inclusive.
Well, that's a very big, that's a Burning Man philosophy, right?
Yeah,
all inclusive.
Exactly. And there's like that kid who's in the corner, or like, if you're feeling antisocial, you can still come to Ritual. Like it was something that really my partner Daniel really wanted to be a part of the event, which I fully agreed with. And when we were getting those 1,000 people, we were still only charging like $5, and we would have lines all the way around the block on Howard, second and Howard. The line would be, like all the way. And across the street, you had EPR, you had another party, which was more geared towards younger folks and was more like EDM based. But like just that time in the scene, it was just, I don't think there'll be a time like that again.
Well, I never say never.
Yeah.
So what
with dubstep, with like that kind of thing.
So I was just going to get to that. So what was going on in your head at that point? Did you say, hey, dubstep's cool and we're loving it here, but what's the next thing? Or do you feel like you just kept riding that wave?
There was a next, the trap came.
Yeah.
So trap came, and trap had, the EDM trap, not like Atlanta trap or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like the EDM trap came, and then you started having kind of a division of sound, and the evolution of dubstep, like the sound of dubstep changed. It started off being very minimal, like very, like go back and listen to Scream or Caspa or Benga or like those, straight forefathers of dubstep. And then you listen to Borgor, or, like the sound would keep getting heavier and heavier as it spread to America from the UK. Americans producers kind of changed the sound. It got a lot more heavier. It got a lot more different. So you kind of had one style of dubstep in the beginning, which was like Skrillex and Deadmau5, and like you had that kind of more like commercialized dubstep where like people knew Skrillex was, and they were going for that what we would call bro step, which was the heavier stuff. And then it kind of transitioned from that into more of like a deeper sound. So we had to like stay up with all the trends in the music, like you're saying, like to stay up in a genre with all of its little subgenres, because you had people that like to go to the other party, the Beat Church party, because they did like more glitch hop. We were just more like dubstep, more heavier, and then trap came, and we included that in our shows more, because it was just pretty cross genre, and we didn't really, we did a little bit with drum and bass and whatnot, but we were like pure dubstep people. We wanted to like cultivate like that dubstep thing. And we picked up, like, before the Ritual started, there was another crew called Grime City that we picked up the torch from them, and then we passed the torch from Ritual to another group called Wormhole.
Sure.
Which blew up as well, and they
in Oakland.
Yeah.
They would do that at the
New Parish.
The New Parish.
Yeah, they did at the New Parish, and we kind of, I played I headlined one of their first events with Stylus Beats, and that was, then they kind of, Ritual kind of eventually faded out, ended, and then we passed the torch to Wormhole, and we started pushing everybody towards Wormhole, because they were the fresh guys. They had the energy, they had the drive, they had the focus, and they had a great location. They were
Same
in
thing
Oakland.
you guys had when you started.
So they,
right?
and they're still going. I think they're coming up on 11 years. So
how long did you guys run Ritual?
6 years. 6 years, and then we did some one-offs. So we were a crew for 7 or 8 years, and we actually brought Ritual back in 2020 because we had people asking about it, you guys, we get this all the time. You guys gonna do Ritual reunion, gonna do Ritual stuff, and we've kind of said no, but we brought it back. We did it at the DNA Lounge with Anti Serum, who's another local guy here, and it was sold out. We sold out the upstairs.
Anti Serum. I had him on the show actually.
I love Mikey. Shout out Mikey.
He's amazing.
Yeah.
And he's
Amazing
based
producer.
out of LA.
Yes.
LA producer, right?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And he was living in SF for a minute.
Yeah,
and,
that's right.
And
that's right.
So we brought it back, and then we were, we sold it out. We're like, perfect. This thing's it's actually back. This is crazy. But then the pandemic happened, and we were getting ready to throw another show. Actually, at the midway, we're gonna, we did the DNA, and then we were gonna throw another show, and the pandemic happened, and that's where Ritual ended up stopping again, because we couldn't throw any shows. So we tried to bring it back again, and we had a little bit of success after stopping it for 4 years, and it was more of a younger audience. It was a different type of thing, because I don't think if you were going to these parties 10 something years ago, or it's hard to say that if you'd still be around going to them, you know what I mean?
Right. People move on in their lives, right?
Of course.
It was a phase in their lives, just like dubstep was a phase in music.
Exactly.
It's not to say dubstep is gone, but it's evolved too.
It's evolved.
Just like you have now, right?
Yeah.
So what's the next phase? Because obviously you're putting out new tracks. You got a new track coming out on Mal label, right?
Yes.
And you got another track coming out on the what's
No Face
No Face,
Recordings.
right?
Yes, and shout out Mal label for everything. I just want to take a quick second to thank them a lot for giving me a chance on this release, because this is a tech house release, and
Called Jack My Style, right?
Jack My Style. Yeah, check that out. It's on Spotify. It's, all the streaming platforms. But it's funny because I did send them a bunch of dubstep and other stuff, and they wanted Jack My Style when I submitted my music to them. And it had always been a huge goal of mine to release with them. Kind of when you're a kid and you grow up watching your favorite sports team, then you end up playing for them or something, you know what I mean? I felt like that was a vibe for me, because I was so into them, and just getting to actually be a part of them, their family, as a release artist, it's cool. It's a full circle moment for me, because I went from watching them and learning how to just following in their footsteps, and then eventually we did some event collaborations with them, some release parties, the Whittler, I mean, Mal label has been they're the standard that I would always try to reach for with Ritual, and I know my partner Daniel felt the same way, and we were always Mal is so solid, Mal label, and the releases that they were putting out from DZ and the Whittler and all the local guys El Diablo, huge fan of them. El Diablo, Rostatronics, Smashel-Tooth. I mean, of course, Smashel-Tooth.
Yeah.
Shout out Smashel-Tooth.
Oh, yeah,
'cause,
shout out.
yeah, her new album on Malleable is great, and I've been a huge fan of Smashel-Tooth. I'm a fanboy of Smashel-Tooth. She knows. She's something special about the scene, definitely, that it's so diverse. That just speaks to the diversity in the dubstep thing, where you could have hip hop, different elements that resonate with different people. Like, you wouldn't expect like kind of these hippie people to like love that kind of stuff, but they love it.
Well, yeah, and I think it's important here just to kind of look at that evolutionary process, so people understand that even though they think they've got their sound and that's what they're going to do, things never stay the same.
You become a house guy, then you go from filthy dubstep to doing bass house and tech house. It is quite a jump, but that's how I've always been as an artist, and I like doing many things. I even started, before I jumped even in the house, I was doing a funk. I don't know if you know what funk music is. PHONK. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. It's a SoundCloud genre that's like huge now. It combines like 90s hip hop and like a little bit of EDM. It's because you have like old Memphis rap samples. So it's called funk, PHONK. So I was starting to go on this funk wave before committing to house, because I wanted to do something like Ritual, where I wanted to bring a different style of something to the city. Like, I just want to contribute to bringing stuff to San Francisco that might not get brought out here. Like,
Sure.
And I was doing the funk thing, and I'm still doing that, but it's more like I have a passion project. But going from that and then really just deciding like I'm gonna spend 2 years of my life learning everything I can about producing house music, and I stopped playing shows.
Bass house music, and tech house, right?
Yes.
I think that's where the sound is going that you've got here. Let's listen to one of your other tracks.
Let's do it.
We got another track here. What's this one? Tell us a little bit about, before I play this. This is called You Say.
You Say.
Right?
Yeah, this is like, this is a bass house track. It's got very prominent female vocals. It's kind of, it kind of fits my melodic bass house style, like that I was going for, and yeah, check it out. Hope you guys like it.
How important are the vocals, would you say, now to these kind of tracks on these releases?
Oh, they're huge.
Right?
I mean, yeah.
And where are you getting the who's singing on this?
So this is not original. This is a sample pack.
Yeah. Splice, okay.
Yeah.
But can you really
I
get
don't
a lot of
recommend that.
traction releasing tracks with splice samples?
That?
I mean, I get it, in terms of like beat samples, bass lines, whatever, but a vocal sample?
I don't recommend it. A lot of the news production, all original vocals, but because someone will just use the same sample and then it diminishes the quality. I haven't heard anyone use this sample. The Do My Thing has been I think used before by now, but this is pretty solid, I think.
Let's check it out.
Check it out.
I mean, the production's solid,
Thank you.
I like, all right, so let's talk about side chaining here for a second.
Yes.
You definitely got some pumping action going on here, which is part of the sound. What are you pumping with here?
The Kickstart plugin is usually like my main compressor, sidechain compressor.
Sidechain.
And Nicky Romero's Kickstart plugin, highly recommend it if you're looking to like really get your kick in your bass in tune and in so they're not clashing. I that's pretty much what I use. And then during the mastering process, that's, you also kind of do that in the master, add in like the compressor on like the whole, on top of like the whole track.
So the whole thing has a pump to it, right?
Yeah, and then getting that dialed in.
Are you using the Nicky Romero plug for that too? Or are you using something else for the master?
Mostly like the ozone stuff.
Okay.
And I kind of use like a
nice
bunch
break
of
here. I like this. That's cool.
There you go.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I mean, in this music, the build up is just as important as the drop. So
Here's your build up right
Yep,
here, right?
right here.
All right, let's listen to that. Ugh. There it is. Sure.
I made this one for the shufflers, for like the people at the show that dance. Nick,
Uh-huh.
they do that. So like, when I drop this track, I see like people dance really hard to it.
Yeah. for
It's like
sure.
it's like a dance floor, kind of like groover / banger.
Mhm.
But
So how do you release a track like this, especially if it's got a sample?
it's royalty free.
Yeah.
So obviously it's it's not like they're gonna come at me and flag me for. Someone's gonna come say, oh, you owe me money now. But like,
But my point is not
Yeah.
so much that somebody would come after you,
right.
but I mean, any established label is not going to touch a track like that, right?
Yes and no.
Really? Okay.
Yes and no. I
Like,
mean, not everything.
School
like
me here, because I
well,
thought that was the case.
I mean, I go through a lot of the top 100 tracks that are on Beatport, like, digging for my sets, digging for tracks.
Sure.
And I'll hear the same sample like 3 times.
Uh-huh.
The same vocal thing.
Right.
Yeah. So,
Well, I mean, that just says a lot about, kind of the state of music today.
exactly.
In a way, how is it that you get 50,000 odd releases coming out every day? People are just grabbing samples and flinging them onto beats, and Now, I'm not saying that's necessarily what you did here, because your beat is creative. You've got a well-produced track, right?
Right.
And obviously, it's a lot easier to just grab a well-produced vocal line and
Exactly.
pop it on there, because producing vocals, as we know, is challenging.
Very
right?
challenging.
Finding a good singer, somebody who can nail it, and then not only nail it, but coming up with the right hook.
Coming up with the copy, coming up with everything. Exactly. It's those people are very valuable. Like
That's where the magic lies.
So if you're watching this and you're a vocalist, please hit me up,
There you
because
go.
I would love to work with you. The original.
You heard it here. You
Yeah,
see that?
because I've had, Greg makes a great point. It's like I've had a lot of tunes rejected because of that. Where they're like, this is a sick track, but the sample, no, we can't do it. Like, not saying that they can't do it. Just they don't want another track to come out with the same thing.
Of course
and it's
not.
like,
Yeah,
which I
feel the same way.
understand,
Yeah.
being owning a label and being on both sides as an artist and as like a label owner. So it's. And when you own a label, it's like you have a specific goals and things in mind that you want to do. And, you as an artist, you want to be on your dream label, but your style might not fit that label. So it's a lot, releasing music is not for the faint of heart. You know what I mean? Like,
For sure.
like even just being, just doing this whole music thing, like you gotta be tough, because you gotta be willing to basically be broke, not make a lot of money, probably not get heard a lot. You got to really have the love and the passion, I think, to survive in this day and age, because it's a lot of lonely nights, just trying to just figure it out. And so if you're watching this, and all I can say is what's helped me is just really just remembering why I'm doing this, and I'm doing this for me. And I notice that when I don't try to play into certain things or sounds or whatever, I create much better music.
Right.
So
because you're being honest, you're being true to yourself.
Yeah.
And
is tough.
and you're right. It's tough. It can be a lonely uphill battle. And this is why, places like Pyramind exist.
Exactly.
Because we're here for the support, for the community, to find people to collaborate with. That's so huge. I mean, your collaborations have made a huge difference in your career.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And finding other artists that want to work with you and then want to support you, and then ultimately supporting each other in that process, so it's not such a lonely uphill battle.
And that's exactly the whole support thing. Find other producers, join a producer group or school like Pyramind, for example. Like, if this was around when I was kind of doing my educational thing, I would have loved to come to here, because this Pyramind actually has what people want, which is, if you want to DJ, you can learn how to DJ here. If you want to learn how to do Ableton into like really make music, because you know what I like what you guys do here is, you know, you guys have like a showcase where like I was watching where, you know, you'll make a track throughout the whole course and then you'll share it, and some really amazing music coming out from people at this facility. I mean, like you know, that have been released on, I know some of these folks that have gone to school here have been released on Mal label, and I've just I'm really impressed by what you guys have going here, and that's been something that's helped me, is just finding my community and finding my you know, kind of people that I can shoot different tracks to. And now that's the crew that I've joined now, which is called Blends and Trends.
Oh yeah.
Out here in San Francisco, which is a house music crew, about 8 DJs, producers, and we throw a weekly event here every Monday at the Valencia Room. So, you know, having a support, joining up with the crew, you know, or just
crew up. I mean, that is such a big piece of advice, just right there in and of itself.
Yeah.
I've heard that said so many times now in the last, just, you know, we've done a bunch of networking events, and people, we talk about, you know, what do you got to do to get yourself out there, and being part of that crew is so important.
You know, you do your stuff, and then you have like a support system of other people, and like as long as you guys all support each other and promote each other's endeavors, then and you know, you're more successful that way than alone. So, but yeah, networking has been the biggest key for my success.
And the fact that you're able to sustain this presence in the Bay Area and keep doing it, I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much.
I love your
Greg.
new track on Mal label. Check it out. It's called Jack My
Please do.
Style. But we're going to just do a little outro here with the Do My Thing track that we started the session with here. This is such a dope track. I definitely think, you know, just the production style in here alone, you got some skills, Johnny.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
All right. Hey,
kind words.
where can we find out more about Johnny5?
You can-
People want to check you out.
The socials, Johnny5 on Instagram. That's Johnny FIVE with the 5 at the end.
Yep.
Same thing on TikTok, SoundCloud.com/Johnny5 official. Johnny5 website rebranding coming soon, but but yeah, I'm pretty active on social media. Blends and Trends, follow us there for all San Francisco music events. So
Nice.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you got it, man. And you can find us, as usual, on the Mentor My Mix website, mentormymix.com. Follow us at Mentor My Mix on Instagram. And as always, if you got suggestions for somebody you'd love to see me interview, please hit me up, Greg at mentormymix.com. We'll see you next time. Mentor My Mix is made possible by Pyramide Music and Audio Production Institute. Evolve your sound with expert trainers and up-to-date courses designed to fit the needs of emerging artists and producers looking to build careers in the music and game audio industries. Go to pyramide.com for details on the San Francisco campus and online programs. Remember, if you have a guest suggestion or want to contact me for any reason, we have a contact form on the Mentor My Mix website. That's mentormymix.com. Or feel free to email me at greg@mentormymix.com.